Welcome to the Grandpa Channel, where stories don't fade, they get recorded. I'm Steve Harris. My grandkids call me Gritters. This podcast is where grandpas and grandchildren pull up a chair, turn on a mic, and let her rip. Grandpa stories are chock full of wisdom, life lessons, and frankly, funny as hell. Your stories are the magic elixir to help your grandkids navigate Mr. Toad's wild ride, aka life. Let's Grandpa. Welcome to the Grandpa Channel. We have a totally wonderful guest here today. He's my friend Kyle Winther. I've known Kyle for probably close to 30 years, and Kyle's like one of my favorite people. He's a hunter and he's a fisherman, and I don't do any of that stuff, but Kyle has still been my friend, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We've gone through a bunch of things together over the years, some really fabulous and some not so fabulous, ups and downs. And I wanted to have Kyle come on and talk because I think this sounds like a eulogy maybe, but I want Kyle to know that you're one of my favorite people. You are a good man. Oh, I kind of wanted just to have you tell a little bit about yourself, Kyle.
Okay.
And let's see, you were raised in a cabin and you did your lessons on the back of a coal shovel or something like that.
Yep. Carved him with a chisel. Yeah.
Something like that. Go ahead.
No, I'm one of those people that have never strayed very far. I was born in Murray, Utah, in the old Cottonwood maternity that was on 53rd South. Not very many people are still alive that can claim that, but that's where I was born. Went through the school program in the Murray district and got married, moved to Sugar House for a brief time, and then my wife and I bought a home in the same neighborhood that I grew up in Murray, and I live right across the street from the home I grew up in.
Wow.
So I have not strayed very far at all.
How many kids and grandkids?
We have 4 children and 6 grandchildren.
Good. And then all 4 are married because you just had your last one get married
in March.
And I've met your dad a couple of times, and I'm intrigued. He's a really, really good man.
He is, and he's, ever since I was a little kid, I just worshiped my dad. I wanted, wherever he was, I wanted to be there. That's my oldest memories. I was always just there. And whether that was, he's working in the yard, washing the car, whatever, I was right there. And so I always just wanted to be where he was. And to this day, he is somebody that I hold in highest regard. Living, he's 93 years old. But I think if I were to describe my dad, it would be quiet dignity. My dad, you almost never know he's around. If he's in a room, he's not the one making any noise or talking. You ask him a question, he'll answer it. Good sense of humor, but he's not the one that's going to start telling jokes. I remember as a kid, he would watch the cartoon Roadrunner with the coyote and that, and just laughed. And he loves Andy Griffith to this day. So, but you get him watching those, and he'll
Mayberry time.
Yep. And I wish I'd have grown up in Mayberry, but he's not a knee slapping, type guy. But he finds a lot of humor in those types of things. Just a good man with. Just so great for me to emulate.
How is he? What kind of a grandpa is he to your grandkids?
That's funny. I'm the middle of 3 children, but I was the last one to get married. I was 26 when I got married, and I was 30 when my oldest was born and 40 when my youngest was born. So by the time my kids came along, they were significantly younger than the oldest grandchildren that my parents had. In fact, some of them were married by the time we had our kids. So when my oldest sister's kids, she had 2 of them, when they were little, my parents were still pretty young, in their 40s and early 50s, that kind of thing. Did a lot of things with them. Took them sleigh riding, taught them some things. We're always doing activities. So by the time my kids came along, they were worn out and they were old, so they didn't, but they would still do things with us. We would take a trip every year. My wife would put together usually a week-long road trip, and many times we would take my parents with us on those trips. So my kids had a lot of time to get to know them a little bit on these trips. I mean, I'm sure that they probably got tired of my parents and vice versa over time. Some of those trips, but great memories from those. Went to so many different places.
Like, where would you go? Up north?
Went to Crater Lake, went up to Glacier National Park, went to Yellowstone, went to Mount Rushmore, went to San Francisco, and Lake Tahoe, that area. So some really good trips. I'm glad we took the time to do that.
Yeah. Now, your grandpa's style with your grandkids, how would you characterize that?
Again, pretty quiet. He loves his grandkids, and they definitely know that. He's not a real hands-on, huggy, feely type guy. Never was when I was growing up, and that's still the case today. But, loves being around them and gets a kick out of watching, and especially the younger ones, the grandkids that I have now, his great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
he loves to be where they're at and gets
fun.
a kick out of.
Oh, now, did you say that you knew your grandfather?
I knew them both.
Yeah, tell me about your two grandpas.
Okay, my mom's dad, Oren Swap, he died when I was 8 years old, and to me, the recollections of him, he was just an old guy, probably about your age.
Thank you.
But back
then,
in the early 60s, 70 was almost. It was rare.
Yeah.
But I just remember he was a tall, thin man, and I have memories of him pushing me in his swing. Lived down in Midvale, and he had this rope swing hanging. And those are my memories of him. Like I said, he died when I was 8 years old. So not a lot of memories of it.
Yeah.
But, and then my grandpa Winther, he died in 1980. So I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I knew him.
But your kids didn't know him, did they?
Didn't know either one of them. They were both gone by then.
Yeah.
So my grandpa Winther, he was a mechanic, and that was what he did for a living. But he also would always work on cars in his driveway and so forth. So when I was in high school, like a lot of kids, bought an old lumpy car and he took it up to Grandpa to have him help me work on it. Cool. We would do brake jobs, and took the engine out of it, and he overhauled the engine one summer. But that was really my recollections of him. Was he was very talented that way, but I don't ever remember a real emotional connection to him until after they were gone, both of them. My grandpa Winther was the youngest child, and he was born in Norway, and when he came over, he was 2 years old, and so his mother died when he was like 6 years old. And so he was kind of raised by his older sisters who were like 20 years older than he was. But he kept a journal that was kind of interesting because he was not an educated man by any means. But he kept a handwritten journal that he started keeping when he was about 16. And it wasn't a day-to-day journal. There's nothing of any real significance written in there, but I've got that. And it's interesting to see, first of all, his thoughts, and like I say, he usually just kind of talked about what he did that day or that week or something, but had incredible penmanship. Really? For somebody that really, I don't even know what schooling he ever actually achieved, but incredible penmanship. So it's kind of interesting. Both of my grandparents, I feel like I've kind of gotten to know them a little bit better since they passed away.
Why do you think that's so, or how does that happen? I believe, by the way, that we are visited far more. We don't, a lot of times we don't see it. Sometimes we do. But, when you say that you feel their love and support, I go, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, no question. And I don't know, it's just a connection that I've felt, for a lot of years to them. And, and I'm an interest in family history to a degree. I'm not one of these people that can trace my line back to Adam or anything like that. But, just
Adam Winther and
a great guy. Great guy. But no, I mean, to me, again, just what I knew of them when they were here. And
did you feel loved by them?
For sure. Yeah. Again, not in a huggy, touchy-feely way. The Swaps were always probably a little more like that than the Winthers were. And still are to that. But to find things that they had written, pictures and things. My grandpa Winther just took literally thousands of pictures.
Really?
And so those were all, ups, and I've got hundreds of them, they're negatives, and I've since copied them. To see some of the things that he took pictures of, and then to kind of put the stories together has really been a lot of fun.
I'll bet it's been a blast. Blast.
For sure.
On Karen's side of the family, are her parents involved much as grandparents? And then how old are they?
They're in their 90s also.
Oh, wow.
They're both still living. And Karen is the youngest of 4 in her family.
Oh, gotcha.
By the time, again, we had children, her parents had grandchildren that were probably in high school. Ours have always been on the tail end, but very much involved. They live close by, always there. It seemed like when our kids were little, we were always having have them over for birthdays and things like that. Always get together, Christmas, Thanksgiving. So they're still very involved and so forth. But, they're in their 90s, and so their mobility and their
limited,
cognitive capabilities are a little diminished from what they once were. But yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you a question that'll put you on the spot.
Okay.
And you are a very humble in a wonderful way sort of person, but I'm going to ask you to sort of, as I bash the microphone, beat your chest a little bit. I think that every grandpa has a superpower, and I want to ask you what you think your superpower is.
Well, that's a good question. I'll think about it as I'm responding, but
or maybe I could tell you what my superpower is.
Let's go that
direction.
direction.
I'll give you a little bit more time.
I appreciate that.
So, believe it or not, my superpower has to do with county jails. And I had a volunteer assignment for 3 years out at the Salt Lake County Metro. Every Sunday for 3 hours, and the first hour and a half were spent going cell to cell in maximum security. And so you go down these concrete, smell of desperation you can cut with a knife. And so you get through these noisy doors and they buzz you in, and there's like 2 sets of doors. And so you come into the maximum security, and there's one level, the grand floor level, and then a top level that just mirrors it. And so what I would do is once they let you in, and then when you get let in, you're either watching the animals in the zoo or the animals in the zoo are watching you. They're not out and about, especially in Max. And so you'd go from cell to cell. Well, lo and behold, I'm really good. You would never know this looking at me, but I am really good at going cell to cell in maximum security. I have fun, and I just had a blast. And so my superpower is that I can have fun, that I can connect with people who they're in maximum security for many reasons, but anyway, it's just that's a superpower that nobody would know that I have. So putting you on the spot.
Okay.
What do you think your superpower is?
Again, great question. I don't personally feel like I have any superpowers, but from the perspective of my grandkids, I'll know what they're to start off with. My grandkids are young. The oldest one's 6.
Yeah.
So they probably don't have a lot of, when they think of me, they can probably visualize me. They probably don't associate me with any particular, ability or anything, but I try to be there for them, for their families. My oldest daughter, Andrea, has a home that she and her husband bought 5 or 6 years ago. And Andrea's constantly finding things to do renovations. And I appreciate the fact that she calls me and asks me to help. So I like doing stuff like that. You have not. You'd be welcome to. I'm not very good, but I do enjoy it.
Certainly not.
So, that's one thing I think that I hope that they recognize in me, that if they need me, that they can call me.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that my kids see value in that. And I'm hoping that my grandkids will also, as they see me over there putting flooring down or new molding and things like that. We've been doing a thing. But it's just as far as like kind of a personality thing, you'd mentioned about your work in the jail system and so forth. I think that's one thing about me that I would say I can be friends with anybody, and I don't say that in a bragging sort of way, but I've got friends that span the spectrum in terms of what they do, what their beliefs are, and so forth, but they're good friends.
You're easy to talk to about a variety of things. Yeah, you're someone that I could call and say, Kyle, I need to talk to you. And he'd say, come on up.
We've probably done that.
Yeah. So I think that's a wonderful superpower. One of the reasons why I'm so grateful for our friendship.
Absolutely.
I think that I'm going to really make you emotional here. If your Norwegian grandpa, the one that you missed it up talking about, if I somehow conjure him up and have him sit right here, what would you tell him?
I would probably just tell him how much I appreciated him. And, like I said, there's not really anything significant or noteworthy that you can say about the guy in terms of his accomplishments. But, when I look back and see the trials that he had as a young person, again, losing his mother at 6 years old and, just kind of bouncing from house to house and so forth. I think just to express gratitude for the person that he is, and because there's clear that life was not easy. As he had his kids, my dad and his brother, that was in the early 30s. So it's
right in the middle of the Depression.
I know that ever made a lot of money anyway, but probably it was even tougher in those situations.
I would imagine.
I can never think of anything where he wasn't a hardworking guy doing all that he could to provide for his family. So I guess I would express gratitude for that.
Okay.
I would love to ask him what he remembers, about his younger life.
Do you wish that you'd known more about his younger wife?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so a lot of the pictures and things that I have are some that he would have taken when he was younger, so I can kind of, get a little bit of a sense for what he valued and so forth. But yeah, I would love to sit down and just ask him to tell me about what he remembers about growing up and things like that.
So here's an even tougher question. Down the same road, what do you think he would tell you? So here you are, Kyle Winther. It's 2025. The Utes are 2-0. Life is good. What do you think he would say to you?
That's a thought-provoking question. I would like to think that he would express appreciation for me holding up the family name and making good, and I value that too. I mean, I truly believe there's a heritage and a responsibility that we have to hold that up and make your family proud of the name that you bear.
I think he would be effusive in praise for you and Karen and your kids. I think that grandpas can be and should be a fountain of ancestral information and stories. And I think that those stories are really, really powerful. And if I were to get hit by a meteorite right now, when I'm out in the backyard, you won't die. Yeah, thanks. But a lot of the stories and stuff that I know about my Danish ancestry especially, and my English ancestry, they just go right down the drain. And so I think that one of the things that I really want to do is be a source of stories and background. I know some stuff, that I need to get it out on the open. And you can write it, but I think that to have me or you tell stories that are sort of recorded, I think is really powerful. And the crazy thing is that we have these iPhones that are just like, ready, set, action, sort of thing. And over a period of about 3 months, about a year or so ago, I did over 100 stories and the quality was terrible. I looked like I was jaundiced in some of them, and then there was a strobe effect, with the fan. But I was able to get some stories out. And the funny thing is the more stories I got out, the more I remembered. So tell me, do you enjoy being a grandpa? It's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was kind of happy when they leave sometimes on a Sunday, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
Even when our kids were infants, to me, it's just like, bring them back when they're 6 months old or 8 months older. Yeah. That's when they start developing some personality. And that's where all of ours are now. The youngest one's a year. But when they're really young, they can, when everybody's at the house or something,
it's
it
like
can get
chaos.
Chaotic, but it's fun.
It's fun.
It is. It's fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
When things are flying, kids are screaming because you're playing with my toys and that kind of a thing.
So did you contemplate when you were growing up, Kyle? Did you look forward to being a grandpa, or did you think about it? I didn't think about it at all.
I didn't even think I'd ever get married, let alone have kids. And so I honestly say I really didn't think much about it. But then again, being the one with the youngest kids, and since grandkids, I'd watch my siblings and so forth, and sometimes the way they would do things, and think, that's going to be me someday. So maybe I'll try to be aware of situations like that. I'll be out in front of a few things.
So with this vast audience that we have, it's going to get bigger, I promise.
I know.
Okay. And the merch that's going to come out of this, it's going to be gigantic, What advice would you have to give to grandpas in particular? My thought is most grandpas know that they're not killing it, that they could improve. I know I can improve and want to improve. But sometimes I think, how am I going to improve?
Right.
So what kind of advice would you have for grandpas?
I think the most that I could think of, and again, perspective that I'm in is the only thing I can relate to, is be there. And the fact that that's not always going to be the case. I probably won't ever be old enough to see my great grandkids, or if I do, I'll be curled up in a corner, they'll just come by and
throw scraps at you.
So, I think that it's so important that we share with them who we are and how much the heritage and, the family relationships, how important those are to me, and to hope that those continue and to see how important they are. So from that perspective, I think to keep records, to keep stories and things like that, so that there are those things, especially when there are grandkids and great grandkids that maybe will never know me. Maybe they can get a little bit of a sense of who I was, and kind of what I've done with my grandfathers.
I think that, I do think that for grandkids that they really do learn from us. And I think that we shouldn't discount what we can do for them, or how we can be a great influence, for them. I love being a grandpa. I know you do too.
Absolutely.
And I want to be better, and I'm open for ways to get better. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and hope it hasn't been too traumatic.
Not at all. Actually, it's fun to have to put some thought into some things that you don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about.
I will tell you that as an outsider, that your Norwegian grandpa is thrilled with you. I feel that. What you've done, you and Karen have done with your kids and your grandkids is really amazing. You've given great honor to them, and there are all these ancestors that, from Norway. Thank you so much for coming. Well, this is the end of an episode with my good friend Kyle Winther, and I think I'm ready for a nap.
I'm always ready for a nap.
Thanks for listening.
That's it for today's episode of the Grandpa Channel. Until next time, keep the mic hot, the memories fresh, and the jokes just slightly inappropriate. I'm out of here. This is pretty good, I think.